Okay, hi, hello. So thank you for listening in. My name is Emma Hodgkinson, and today I'm talking to the phenomenal businesswoman and general badass Anne-Sophie. So we're going to be talking a little bit about my new book, which is Getting Over Myself and Other People. Please excuse my messy fingerprints, but it's a really good snack accompaniment. And we're going to be talking about some of the issues that it brings up today. So hello, Anne-Sophie, thank you for chatting with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome, you're so welcome. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight in there. So first kind of issue that we're going to be talking about is the complexity of women. Now that seems like a ridiculous topic because that should be a given, but quite often I think it's a little bit underestimated. So the first poem that we're going to be talking about is Complex Female Character, and I'm just going to read it for you guys first. I'm bored of your confusion, as if I'm the centre of some collusion, where my sole intent and purpose is simply to make you nervous. Well, I have some news. Ding ding, yippee. It turns out there's several aspects to my dripping femininity. I'm saying please and demanding more. You're on a pedestal than on the floor. I'm careful with me, but not with you, and yet I'll give up everything I ever knew. I'm glitter and black, but white cashmere. You'll bathe in my laughter and drown in my tears. I'm lifetimes of commitment, and I can't hold down a job. And my mind is still, but my veins, they throb. I'm dreams and academia. I'm outside and interior. And if this doesn't answer your question, then I'd suggest don't ask again.
I think that's such a good one to throw out there to begin the topic, because it's just everything. It's just everything that like a woman feels every single day, and it's so complex and still so difficult to kind of make men understand or see.
Yeah, do you know what? I had the title for this poem came from like this ridiculous thing. I was on like a TV streaming platform, and one of the genres of television shows that was suggested to me was complex female characters. And I was like, what is that? How is that a genre? Like, what isn't a complex female character? Like a badly written character, I guess. And it's really annoying that so often we are the women that we see in stories and in films or whatever are very like dual by nature. Or singular, even worse.
Yeah, and they're the side character. They're either the pretty dumb woman that plays a very small role in this other person's life, but still it's all about them, and they're just there. They just exist, and they're either this or they're that. They're either pretty woman or
the ugly one. Yeah, exactly. I think one thing that's I've always really struggled with is the way that sexuality in films or whatever is often like villainized. Like you have like the femme fatale character, and she's a woman who's basically in control of her sexuality, therefore she's evil. So like Catwoman, or even like Ursula in The Little Mermaid.
Yeah. She's just bad. She's just, the sexual energy almost transforms into this like aggressive energy, and it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, and like, what about like the sexual mothers? I mean, and it even like I hate that I get a bit cringed out even thinking about like I'm like, oh, sexual mother, but that's bad. But it's because we're taught that you cannot be the sort of nurturing female and be sexual. But I mean, by definition, mothers have to have sex to have children. So.
But I think that's like it's from me back in the days, what you would see thrown at women is that your sexuality is something that can only really be appropriate or come alive once you're married, once you've given yourself to a man. Then okay, like you can a little bit, but only in the constraints of your own home, only under like the Christian guise, be married, your virgin until then, and that still translates today in the way that people view female sexuality.
Yeah.
Or what's appropriate with it.
100%. And then I think this is where I get kind of interested about the idea of it being complex, because then there's another sort of side of it where actually sexuality is overused by the patriarchy. And then I mean, I grew up like going to WH Smith and seeing, you know, like Nuts and Zoo and FHM, and you know, I'd be like an 8-year-old girl seeing these like over sexualized, oiled up, naked women, and I'm at like this really weird point in my life where I want to embrace and take power of sexuality, but also I don't like the way that it's used to reduce me. And I think the thing that I get frustrated about is it's not one thing. And there are intricacies that people often don't respect.
Yeah, I think with the magazines that are like that, it's marketing that is at men, it's for men, it's for their, sorry, my dog is it's for their consumption. So the sexuality of a woman in that sense, it's very like oiled up and out there, and I mean, if you think about it, is if you have a lesbian couple, is that what they're turned on by? Like they could be, but not necessarily.
He doesn't like the patriarchy either.
And these days,
did you see I Hate Susie? Sorry. Did you see I Hate Susie recently on Sky?
No. Oh, no. I meant to watch it, but I haven't. Is it good?
It's so good. But there's this really interesting scene where she's masturbating and she's fantasizing about different things. And there's this sort of voice, and she's like, "Why am I fantasizing about that? That's not what I want. That's what I think I'm supposed to want. What do I want?" And it's a really interesting thing. We, as women, we're rarely actually asked, what is it that we want? What is it that turns us on?
Yeah, it's like the world has, you know, it's been designed by men for men, and it's the same way that it's been like public infrastructure has been designed for people who are right-handed, because those are the people who were in charge, those were the majority. So as a left-handed person, you're kind of like, sometimes you might run into something and you're like, oh, this door doesn't really work for me, but you're just used to it, and that's how you have to kind of like get used to it. And the same way sexuality, female sexuality, has been put out there by men to sell products, to sell, it's like in every market, to sell cars, to sell burgers, everything. And that's how it is. And it's so out there and like oiled up and over the top. And then you step back and you think, this isn't actually what I'm into, or this, I don't really, what is this? Like, why is it like that?
100%. So the next, we've got another poem which kind of talks about like the complexity of female characters. Would you like to read it for me, Anne-Sophie? I would love you to read it. It's Calendar Issues.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm not as great as you are, but I'm gonna try. He has an April sort of view of me, light and tender, nervous and slow. He sees delicate pastel blossoms swaying slowly to the grass, freshly cut for the first time after a cold winter spent alone. Remembered as confetti spread across the tracks for newborn bunnies singing songs of procreation. But oh, love, how can you not see? I'm seething with August, sweat sticking long hair to hot necks. The dirt under my nails is dark, and the soles of my feet are hard, and the days are long, the nights are thick, and August drips down. Every crack and smothers suffocates. Haven't you noticed the way we women wear warmth, envied by forest fires breathing in gasps? Sighs, heavy in desire, and I run my fingers through my hair and scream and shriek and drink the air, and I ride my own body into the sky.
Thank you so much. Oh, it's so nice hearing you read it.
Sorry if I didn't do it justice. I tried. I think the first sentence is so beautiful, that the way that you say he has an April sort of view of me. I really like that.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, no, this came from a guy that I was dating, and I was really struggling with. I mean, and we all do it in relationships. You project what you want the person to be. And I think especially this relationship, it was, you know, someone that I'd met on a dating app. So immediately the problem is you get a few pieces of information about them and you create the rest. Yeah.
The way you want it. The way that it works.
Yeah. And I started to clock that he was doing it to me. And I think that this particular, the way that he saw me as this, you know, this girl that he wanted to look after and protect and nurture is actually something that women get quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm taking back to my last relationship.
Yeah, yeah, and it's exhausting because, you know, then when we act in a way that doesn't match that, we feel that we're not meeting some sort of standard.
Yeah, their expectations of us, or somehow we're making them feel less of the man. Is that what they need? Like you feel like you're letting them down just because you're kind of afraid to step into your authenticity, to step into your strength. I mean, I've lived on my own since I was 14. Every single partner that I've had has been like, oh well, let me, like, look at how much I do for you, and where would you be without me? And you know, sometimes you're so ditzy and like, ha ha ha, it's so cute. And I'm like, I have so much life experience. Like I've lived on my own. I've learned how to cook and clean from when I was, this is years ago, and I've traveled on my own, and I've switched jobs, I've done everything, and I've done everything by myself. And now all of a sudden I'm opening myself up to someone who feels like they need to come in and rescue you. And it feels like, on one hand, I appreciate that. Thanks. That's really nice to have, you know, someone who loves you and cares for you, but it takes away from you as a person. And it adds to this whole thing of, what are we doing? Why are we letting these men navigate this world for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the thing that's really interesting about it is what this sort of standard that we're being asked to sort of be put into as well. It is essentially about making yourself smaller. And so, and you know what, the amount of times I have pretended not to understand something to
So
make
that they
some,
can explain it to you.
yeah. Oh God, my phone's going off, so sorry. Hang on. Yeah, no, exactly. And or maybe I've pretended to be more scared than I am, or and I can feel myself doing it, and it's awful. It's really, really, really bad. But also the thing is when you, in the moments when I have then tried to sort of, you know, to be myself, to be confident, or to be, or it's not even being confident, but just being normal, just not being less than.
Like how you would with your friends.
Yeah, exactly. You can feel the kind of like, you can feel them recoil, and you can feel and I had a really interesting thing with a guy that I was dating, where he told me that he wasn't attracted to girls wearing revealing clothes, and he found it really off-putting. And I was like, what? What do you mean? He was like, yeah, you know, I just find it. And I really, it really stuck with me, and it really confused me. And I would find when I was out with him, I started to feel a bit self-conscious if, you know, the split in my skirt was quite high. And I was like, well, why does that make me less attractive? And it's because I'm owning my sexuality, because I'm aware of it, and instead what I should be like wrapped up and covered and
Shy and beautiful, but not know that you're beautiful.
yeah, exactly.
Only in your own home, like with this guy. Yeah, I think it's, again, is we're kind of catering to these needs and requirements, and I mean, it's just complete, like, it's complete bullshit. I mean, when I go out with my friends, the person that I am then, versus when I have gone out with friends and my boyfriend there, and like, oh, huh, they're so crazy, and like I would never like dance like that, just to make like they can't accept you as you are. That was like a big issue for me in lots of past relationships. When you like own yourself, and when they see you being, well, it's not confident, just normal.
Exactly.
And I think that's the problem. It's like, no, I'm not being confident. It's not like I've had a glass to drink and like this is just who I am, and you need to find the strength within yourself to just accept me for that, and not have these prerequisites for what a woman should be, how it should make you feel. You shouldn't have to, it's, you know, feel like the man and feel like the bigger one.
Yeah.
And, you know, I shouldn't, as a woman, feel the need to be feminine and long hair and be pretty and made up. You know, I don't want to be. I mean, in my last relationship, I'm going to say this: I, during lockdown, was working from home in my loungewear and was criticized for looking like a lazy kind of slob, or, you know what I mean, like I should be looking beautiful for my partner and feminine and put makeup on. You know, it's just because nobody's seeing you doesn't mean like it's the end of the world thing. And
The thing that really does my head in about that is what people are scared of isn't us looking like slobs, it's our face. Like, my face without makeup is not me not doing something, or not, that's just me, that is what I look like. And you know, my sister said something to me years ago, which I actually, it was your caption on one of your pictures as well recently, and it was, we don't owe anybody pretty. You don't owe it to the people that you walk. And I used to be the worst for it. I would, you know, like every time I went into the supermarket or work, I would always have to have a full face of makeup. And
you feel like you're presentable that way, but you can't exist as you are. That's not presentable. You have to be something other than yourself.
Totally. And it's, you know, it's not even, yes, it's part of it is about you know, being attractive for men, but also, as you said, I would feel that I didn't look professional if I wasn't wearing my makeup and if I hadn't done whatever. It's exhausting. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next thing because otherwise we're going to run out of time. So the next topic we're going to be talking about is activist fatigue. So this is something that is really funny because I wanted to write about, and then I've even been criticized by people when I've written the poems, which is the whole point of it. Okay, so the first...
Reading your poems.
Yeah, literally. So I am going to read one when I can find it, called Spag Bol Shame, which resonates a lot in my life. No, it's not called Spag Bol Shame, it's called 20 something. So, all my plants are dead and I didn't like them anyway. I'm too deep into this chasm of a week, though I think it's only Wednesday. I drink water all the time, but usually with coffee in. I pretend to be ambitious, but I'd rather win the lottery. I did want to be a feminist, but I wish I hadn't bothered now. I'd like to be on page 3, watching all these men stop dead and bow, while I just giggle mindlessly how grand this kind of life can be, and I'll two-step through the system in a colourful monotony. Yeah, so, oh my gosh, this is the one that I got told off by my friends. They were like, what, you don't want to be a feminist, you want to be on page 3? And I think, like, what I mean by it is, oh my gosh, sometimes it's just, it's exhausting, it's draining, and there are so many times. So Zelda Fitzgerald, one of my students that I used to work with, told me about this, and it's just the most beautiful thing. She was the wife of F. Scott Fitzgerald, and she once said to him, when she found out that she was pregnant, or maybe she was thinking of her daughter, I'm not sure, but she said, if I have a daughter, I really hope that she's beautiful, and I hope that she's a fool, because that's the only way a girl can survive in this world, to be a beautiful fool. And sometimes I really think that I wish I could just switch off to everything.
Yeah, because it's designed like that. It's easy for you to just wake up, put on your makeup, feel like you're presentable, not tread on anyone's toes, not get in the way of anything, not be labeled as like an angry feminist, not stand up, you know, just kind of play the game. That's easy. You can exist in the world like that, happily, blissfully unaware, and just like keep going. Okay, just kind of shut your mouth and be small and just fit into that mold.
Totally. And I, you know, like there was a really funny article on like Daily Mash years ago, and it was like having to turn off the feminist button to watch a TV show because it's hard sometimes to even just like sit and enjoy television. But that's why I think that we need to really we need to be empathetic with other people who are fighting for a cause, because I think it's so easy to have the narrative that they're, you know, angry eco warrior, this angry whatever, and they're happy in their bubble. And actually, it's the opposite. It's so much easier to just get on with it. And I think it's really important to have empathy and respect for people who are trying to pull away from that.
Yeah, but it takes a lot of energy. I mean, when you see what's wrong in the world and what's wrong in the media, and how women are portrayed, how everything is portrayed, you know, once you start learning about it more, it's the same with racism and all of the wars that are going on. You know, it's kind of given to you, and you look at it and you do the due diligence. You're like, okay, I'm gonna read up on this, I'm gonna actually engage with this, I'm not just going to be a passive bystander in this unjust world. And it elicits so many emotions, and it's really tough. And you said it, like, you have to switch that button off if you can, because everywhere you go you're seeing injustices. If every TV program that you watch, even just the news, you're like, why did they dress her like that, and why are they asking this woman these questions and these men, you know, nothing. And it's just triggering everywhere. And if you feel a certain way about things, if you feel like, okay, this is not the way that things should be, it's a lot to take in. Like, that's a lot of baggage to carry. And sometimes you just want to be able to just unwind. And there's other stuff going on in your life as well. Like, some people are trying to like make a career or go to university, study, learn something. And it's people kind of go through a lot when they want the world to be a better place. And I think, yeah, people can also be quite horrible to people, like, why aren't you posting about this, do you not care about this and this, and they kind of derail the whole conversation. And it just gets a lot. It really gets a lot. You can either be a full-time activist or participate in activism as much as you can, but you also need to be able to like give yourself a break and not comment on everything, and just, yeah, like,
Yeah,
leave it at what it is.
100%. And I think that really, really does my head in, actually, you know, when people criticize you for not, or, you know, for doing something that doesn't necessarily align with, and it gets really complicated. But I think that it's really important to remember that we, even if we are aware and try to be, you know, try to be equal, try to be understanding, try to consider everything, we are also part of the system. And just because we're aware of the system, we are going to fall victim to it sometimes.
Yeah.
And therefore, sometimes, you know, so for example, like being a woman, what do I do? I mean, like, I'm wearing makeup today, I've done my hair, like, I'm wearing, yeah, okay, maybe there's reasons, you know, I could say that I am doing it for me and I enjoy it and it's whatever, but there are going to be also, I am doing it because I am still part of this system that is telling me to do that. And we therefore shouldn't beat ourselves up. And the amount of, you know, other women or men, non-feminists or feminists, who have criticized me for doing something that doesn't align with, you know, what I preach, and it's just another part of the misogyny, or of the, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be about gender, of the whatever it is that we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's just totally derails what you're trying to do. It just like kind of kicks you a little bit. Yesterday, I mean, I'd been walking around the house looking like a boy all day, but kind of like a little bit on purpose. I had no makeup, I put my hair back, like I wore baggy jeans like a boy, I say, but just whatever I wanted to wear on that day. And my brothers were like, oh, you look like a boy, you really don't care. And I'm like, yeah, I really don't care. I'm not existing for anyone other than myself. So if I feel fine, I feel fine. And then my friend came around for dinner, and we put on makeup and we got dressed up because it was like a special occasion. I hadn't seen her for ages, for her birthday in a couple of days. And all of a sudden, like, I walked out of the room and they're like, haha, that's funny. So much for, you know, your feminist standards and like not doing anything for anyone else. And I was like, you know what? This is not for you. This is just because I'm not, you know, I'm just because it's just, there's no more to it. And stop trying to take off, stop trying to make everything about that.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, so would you do me the honors of reading the next poem? Um, do you know what? Maybe we should skip Spag Bowl Shame, because it's kind of similar to what we've just been talking about, and actually go to the next one, Insidious. It's a long one. Do you mind reading it?
Okay. Yes. Last week I looked at a man I hate, his face encased with lies. So easy to berate him, no surprise to find his words are dunked with prejudice, his violent speech explicitly igniting wars against another race. So I screamed and shouted at my favorite enemy, my disdain pouring out so gracefully. Can someone tell me how poison can be allowed to run a country? And this week I spoke to a friend I love, but quickly flinched as I caught sight of thoughts in her mind, dribbling out iced in cyanide, mixed with doubt of facts I thought indisputable, but she thinks, well, now discussions on the table. We might ignore the abuse of minorities in order to put faith in the authorities because really it's in the benefit of you and me. And I recoil and wonder when the venom began to crawl its way through her veins. Sorry, it's just skipped to the next one. Then tonight I sat back in my own head and browsed the library of my thoughts instead and visited everything I've ever said. I sat back pleased at all I'd ever achieved and awarded myself a philanthropic trophy and took some time to reflect and entertain curiosities. But just one or two small footsteps in, I dropped straight, flat to my knees. In the dark corners of my body, toxicity tiptoed tentatively in a cloak of cocaine, socialism, and song, of ignorant optimism hiding in my privilege. This venom's not new, it's intimately vintage, and it's infected every part of me, contaminating systemically. And I start to realize that poison has always run this country, and it didn't leave out me.
So I definitely gave you one which has like no full stops.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So, oh my gosh. So I wrote this during shortly after the death of George Floyd, and a lot of the protests began in America and across the world. And I was, I think I started off so easily angry at Trump and Boris and all these like clearly awful people. And then it was as I said, it was an easy rage. It was an easy rage. And then the more I started to think about it, the more I noticed it in people who I respect, and people who I would consider liberal, and people who I would consider not even necessarily liberal, just good people saying hateful things. And then obviously then I started to look back at some of the things that like I've done and said in my life. And I think it goes back to this thing that like we're silly to try and pretend that we are not part of the system. We can be aware of it, but that doesn't make us not part of it.
Yeah. I think once you start really looking into that, beyond what's been taught in school, beyond how they try and sugarcoat racism and like what these countries have been built on, one thing that you realize is that just because of how I look, I have had certain advantages based on the discrimination of other people. And I mean, the main thing is just because I'm white and I look the way that I do, I've had opportunities that, or I haven't been, pulled up by the police when I was younger, when I was being mischievous or going outside late. I never, not that I never like got the cop never pulled up, but I was never scared of that. I wasn't even aware of that. I had no concept of the way that other people are brought up, how they struggle, and the fear and the opportunities that are taken away from them and their families and their whole communities. And yeah, you realize as much as you want to help, as much as it's unfair, you're benefiting from it. and how to stop. Like you just want to stop existing altogether because you feel
Yeah.
like that's all I can do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's a really interesting thing because when I was kind of really going through, and obviously we were in lockdown as well, so this was taking up a lot of a lot of my time, and I was and it should take up more, but I was getting in arguments with people on Facebook that I don't know, and it was
Yeah.
Birmingham. I'm on like a Birmingham Facebook group, and I was so upset because all of these Brummies were saying these awful, awful things about the BLM movement, and I was getting, and I must. It's my responsibility to tell them that they are wrong and to show them but actually, ta targeting the really racist people, the people who are really obviously the obvious kind of villains in our world or whatever, it's not going to change them. They are not going to change. However, the people who can make the differences are the people who might, yeah, and also and ourselves, and actually looking at what we do, and thinking, okay, like what can I do that will maybe it's the way that I use language, maybe it's the opportunities I give, the opportunities I take, the things that I invest my time and money in. How can I? And I think that that's been the really interesting thing, because I always thought it was going to be the liberals against the racists, and I don't think that is. It's more of like an uprising, but we've got
Yeah.
to attack ourselves first to do that.
It's you who are in those privileged positions to acknowledge, okay, what about this next step can I do better? Should I pass up this opportunity for someone who is getting overlooked? Should I specifically invest my money into like Black-owned businesses, female-owned businesses, because these are people who, for the history of time in our civilizations have been undermined. And do I need to go like the extra mile to, okay, I'm not going to order books off Amazon, I'm going to go to the local bookshop, Black-owned bookshop, and buy these books and support these people and really put my money where my mouth is and have all my actions aligned with what I believe? Or do you take advantage of Amazon's next day free delivery? Everything is like in the system. It's really easy for you. You don't have to think twice. They've already got all your information, your credit card, da da da. It's just the press of a button. Is it ease, or going and actually checking yourself and like doing like little acts of protest in the little parts of your life?
Yeah, 100%. And actually, because my book is available on Amazon, and that is the way that it is most commonly sold. And if I'm honest, I hadn't even really thought about it until a customer contacted me and said, "Is there any other way that I can buy your book? Because I don't want to, I don't want to contribute to a big global whatever. I want to contribute to independent people." So she bought it straight off me, and it was it it just took me by so much surprise, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, why haven't I act like I'm this, and I hadn't even thought about it. And then since then, more people have been doing it, and it's really exciting. But it made me think how many of those decisions that they're not decisions to me because I do them so easily. How many times do I order something off Amazon? How many times do you know what? I actually had it in the gym yesterday when I was, because obviously you're supposed to wipe down the equipment, and it was towards the end of the day, and I put down the dumbbells or whatever, and there was a moment when I nearly walked away from them. No one had seen, no one had whatever.
Yeah.
I had to really check myself and really could be like, come on, stop just thinking of you, like there is a pandemic, let's let's clean down the equipment. But there was a real making those decisions, and actually also someone said something really interesting to me about decision fatigue, and that we can only make a certain amount of decisions a day because it exhausts us, and in this world even more so, we're having to make more and more and more, and it's hard, but I think it's important to.
Yeah, because there's so much attached to every decision, and especially if you're like an overt campaigner for something, people are on your backs and they're like, well, didn't you think about this, and like how does that decision impact so and so, from what you wear, like is that ethically produced and sourced? And there's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
But like you said in the beginning, it's people like us who are on the brink. We believe something, we want something, and we have to think about those decisions and talk to our friends about those little decisions that we can actually make a big impact. Because there's no, I mean, you can go to the overt racist and tell them to stop being racist, but there's little things that we can do, and hopefully we're the majority, to really like flip the scales and show people that our little decisions have a lot of like
Yes, exactly. Okay, cool. Right, move on to the next topic. I could honestly talk for hours about all of these things, having to like check ourselves again. Okay, right. Oh my gosh, codependency. Whew. This is a big one. Okay, so I'm gonna read a poem called Get Fit Quick. So, I thought I found strength, but I think I just found fillers, people and things and places. They filled up my skin and became my innards, and I walked around tall. But the people walk off and the things end up broken, and I forget the names of the places. I start to deflate, a big bag of skin, no muscles to hold me upright. Old habits die hard, and I'm soon searching for a new face or home or title, knowing they'll hold me up for a while in this all too familiar cycle. Oh, so I
inspired you.
Pardon?
What inspired you for this one?
Oh my gosh, I find it hard talking about codependency, and the reason why I find it hard is because I am codependent. I really am, and every single, ever since I was young, when I hear people talking about codependent people, I get this horrible feeling because I know that I do it. And I think that people often think about codependency about being about a relationship, but I think that codependency is actually about you can be codependent on a job, on material things, on a place, on whatever. And I think so I have had quite an interesting year because at the beginning of lockdown I actually started having stress-induced seizures, and I was really confused. And when I spoke to the doctor, but I don't really know why. Like what is, I don't sort of seem, I'm quite good at like just kind of keeping on with things. And he was like, but that's the worst. And actually what does the most damage is when you're in a bad place and instead of dealing with it, you just go on to the next. So if I go through a breakup, like you can trust that I'll be writing a play, I'll be going out every night, I'll be cutting my hair and doing something. And I don't know, maybe cutting your hair doesn't quite count. But I need some kind of like thing. I need something else to kind of fill up my body with. And if I don't have that, then, and which is what happened at the beginning of lockdown. So I lost my job because I'm an actor, and I was supposed to be touring with a play, and obviously because of coronavirus that was cancelled. So I lost my job, I got dumped, and the worst thing was about lockdown, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go get another job. Yeah, I couldn't go out, I couldn't. And then my body was just like, nope. So it's been a really big thing trying to relearn, well, not relearn because I don't think I ever learned it, but learn how to find stuff within yourself.
Yeah, and to sit with the heavy stuff and just to like let your body feel all the shit that it's going through and just take it. Just kind of like know that you're gonna get through. And once you're out the other side, it doesn't matter how long it takes, and it's not necessarily a linear journey, but you'll look back at the time and you're like, I really felt those things. They have imprinted upon me, but I've grown from that. Something beautiful has grown, some like strength and resilience, and like just knowing that whatever comes next, you're kind of like, cool, I'm gonna be right here. I guess.
Yeah, totally. Because there will be more things, there will be more things that hurt. But it's interesting. My friend is currently going through a breakup, and an old picture of us came up from the year before, and it was when I just gone through a really bad breakup, really, really, really bad. was like awful time. And she was like, oh, see, you were so strong, you handled it so well. And I was like, no, that wasn't okay, because I just got on with things. I didn't sit with my feelings. I didn't appreciate that I was hurting. I just went out and I went really hard. And that, you know, and that probably did contribute to me being ill this year. I think that there's something really special about allowing yourself to feel things.
Yeah. Well, we're taught not to do it, or we're taught that we do it too much, you know, cry when something goes wrong. And we're also kind of stuck between, okay, am I going to be this emotional woman, or am I going to be this strong woman? And actually, it's not this or that. It's not the sexy woman or the like wife. It's we're in between, and we're all of it. You know, we're not perfectly in the middle. It's everything, and that's cool, and that's normal, and that's what happens. And just yeah.
Yeah, you know, it all goes back to the complexity of women, which shouldn't even be a phrase.
But it's a beautiful thing, you know, it's a beautiful thing to have your friend who's out with you after going through a really tough situation and still taking herself out. And whether she's thinking, I'm doing this to like get over, you're still there, and you're still showing up, and you're still feeling those things inside. And, you know, the best thing that you can do is both go out, be there, engage with life, because that will heal you, but also retreat and engage with what's going on internally.
Yeah, I think that's actually really good advice for anyone who is currently going through a breakup. I think, yeah, I think that's really, really, really important. You know, when so I can't, my friends always laugh at me when I start sentences like this, but my acupuncturist, so
My
basic. My acupuncturist, who's this amazing, amazing guy, he said to me once when I'd come in and it was going through that bad breakup, and I was just like, I was crying, and I was in so much pain, and he stopped for a second. He was like, God, isn't it a wonderful thing that you can be so upset? And I was like, what? I was like, this doesn't feel. Yeah. And he was like, isn't it gorgeous that you loved someone that much, that you felt something so deep that it pains you, like how. Yeah, and it actually, I think that's a really wonderful way to look at it. Like, pain is a really special thing in a lot of ways, that we have that depth of emotion.
Yeah.
Mm.
Whenever I go through something, whatever it is, I always read an excerpt from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Do you know him?
Yes, yeah, I haven't read it, but yeah, I've heard of it.
And there's one phrase that always comes up, and it's your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. And I think whenever I'm in pain, I feel that I'm like, here's something that I thought I knew and understood and felt and was solid, and now it's shattered, and I have to come to terms with the fact that it's what I knew no longer is.
Mm.
And you just go through it and build up your understanding in ways that work, and you're like, okay, this relationship didn't work out for so and so reasons. That's how it is. That's the fact now. There's no way that you can go back and like make it what it was. It doesn't exist. It's gone. And now you have all these pieces, and you just structure it in a way where this mess is now your reality.
Mm.
And you just have to see it for what it was, something that didn't work out, not meant for you. And it's not this thing that I thought it was, it's something else, and that hurts, but I can accept that now.
You know, that's absolutely gorgeous. One, I need to read that. I need to read it ASAP. But also, that actually links to a poem,
Yeah.
classic, which I would love for you to read. It's in the next section. It is Green Fingers.
Yeah, got it. And now it's clear to me that the garden of my tomorrow I'd filled with trees and leaves and branches, of you and us and nights and days and years, your voice, my mouth, our touch, intertwining ivy leaves so green and rich and delicate, when in truth, it all belongs to yesterday's soil, and I laugh to myself as I look at tomorrow and see the barren patch of land, wondering how I ever thought I could be a gardener. Then I look again to yesterday Oh,
As an original copy, it's got a typo in. I promise it's corrected
sorry.
now. It's not your fault.
And I look again to yesterday and find it bursting with life, so dense and lush, your voice, my mouth, our touch. And I smile because my past is beautiful. So I look again to tomorrow and I see the empty soil, not barren, but glistening, and infinite arability.
Yes. So
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
oh,
And
thank
that, yeah, you're right. It links so well. I like the way that you brought it back in the end, that you can look back and appreciate the beauty of what was, while also embracing the future in its abundance. It could be anything. It's not barren soil. There's,
yeah,
because you don't know what it is, it could be anything.
exactly. And I think, the hardest thing that I find about breakups isn't necessarily the loss of the past, it's the loss of the future that you imagine together. Because you do, and you think, okay, my life is going down this path and we're going to live here and we're going to do this and I will be this person because of such and such. And then when that's gone, it's really scary because you've just got this like expanse of time ahead of you and it feels dead and it feels black.
Yeah.
And then there's always that wonderful moment, like there's a one, I can always pinpoint it down to one point where I'm like, oh my gosh, actually I can be happy again. Like I see it.
Yeah, and you see that, the barren soil, and you're like, I need to start from the beginning, without realizing that your life is already somewhere. There is a starting point. You just don't see it yet. There are things that have relationships that you've had in the past, people that you know, places that you've been, they're all going to contribute to that future. You're not starting from nothing. You have all these experiences.
Totally. It's
One thing that I really love about this, it goes back to, so what you were just saying goes back to that whole codependency thing. You're grieving the loss of a life that you imagined, and that's with the codependency, that you're kind of projecting this idea and this image and these beliefs that you have onto your future, and you attach yourself to that. And it's that breaking of the shell. If you live without attachment to a certain outcome, then you can't be disappointed. You have to learn, just because you want them to be a certain way, they won't be that way. And life is actually going to play out the way that it plays out. And you can't get attached to a certain outcome because you don't know the outcome. The soil is open for everything, that anything can happen.
yeah, and it's funny because we all do it, and I know that growing up, like it's something I was doing as a child, as a young child, that I want to get married at 24 and I want to have a baby like this and they're going to be called this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to live in this sort of place, and life doesn't happen like that. You can't plan, and at
Yeah,
first it's scary when you realize that it's all going wrong, but it's not going wrong.
it's not wrong. It's just, it's not going the way that people told you that it will go or should go. I always thought, first you get married, then you have the children, like then you move into the house, then you have the children. And actually, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, I probably feel like I would have children before I get married, or if I even ever get married. Is that important? Is that something that, it's another one of those little decisions that I need to question, even though it's not a little decision, but it's something that exists in the world as the norm, and you have to really pick it apart and see, is that something that resonates with what I believe.
Yeah, and I think that a part of the problem is that we're brought up on like goal orientated lives. Like I mean, even like the phrase happily ever after, it's like the princess gets married and then they live happily ever after. It's like,
The
well,
rest is like, will play itself, it will work out from
yeah,
then.
but like what, surely we should already be in our, I mean, I'm 27, it's not like I've been like sat waiting like, oh, I'm not married yet, I'm not on my happy bit. Like we and then also, there's the danger of, if we then focus on goals all the time, so getting the ring, then having the baby, then well, what happens next? Like,
Yeah, well, yeah, happiness is always the next destination, and in that sense you'll never arrive, because it's always somewhere where you're not. And if happiness doesn't exist in your everyday life here and now, then happiness will never exist, because you will never, it's not never something that you will achieve. It's just something that you create and experience.
yes, oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I think it was again, like sort of going back to my kind of dodgy lockdown, because obviously that's where like all of my poems came from. I I had that sort of, because I thought that when I lost the tour, which is what I'd sort of been working towards all year, and then I got it, and then I lost it, and I felt that I was back at square one. And you know, I have lived I've lived in quite a few different places, but because of the situation that I'm in at the moment, trying to chase the acting and the writing, I've moved back in with my parents. And a huge, a huge panic for me was, I'm back to square one. I've lost. I've just got to wait for the next year again now because I've lost the tour. I'm still with my parents. I haven't got a flat. I haven't done this. I haven't whatever. Um, and actually, those are meaningless goals, you know, because I have been in a career which was, you know, fairly successful, and I lived on my own and had this flat that, and I had money, and I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And I had those, you know, I ticked those boxes, but I had, you know, I had everything that I thought I wanted, and it was meaningless. So yes, now in so many ways it feels like I've taken a million steps back, but actually I am the happiest I've ever been. So what does that mean for happily ever after? Like,
Yeah, but that's so nice to hear, and I'm glad for you. But also moving back in with your parents, like people see that as like a step back. It's not, and the same way that healing isn't linear, you know, your life, your growth isn't linear, and it doesn't depend on certain like things that you've achieved, moving out, being successful, having your dream job and your dream career, and being in a good relationship. I mean, first of all, you need to give yourself credit for having achieved those things already. You've already achieved a lot of the things that you wanted. It hasn't been taken away from you. That makes you. Those are your experiences. You have them, you can claim them. They don't just go away because coronavirus happened and because the opportunities aren't like thriving right now. That exists within you. You've already got there, and when the time is right and when those things will happen, they will happen because you have that capacity, you know that. And a lot of people have been doing that. I'm back in Switzerland for a couple of months now to save money, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. We these are privileges that we have, and you know, we can't reject them.
yeah, exactly. And you know what? I'm so privileged to have parents that are happy for me to come in, and my mum still makes me cups of coffee on demand. And you know, they love me, and I'm so lucky to be surrounded by people who care and who, you know, put the roof over my head. And I think one thing that has been kind of dwelling on my mind a lot recently is I felt like I was having this awful time. But oh my gosh, I am so lucky in comparison to so many people. And that is why, this links on quite nicely, I decided that I wanted to start an official partnership with Refuge charity. So they support victims of domestic abuse. And oh my gosh, when I think of all the things that have been difficult, one thing that I've always had is home, being a place of love and being a place where I feel safe. So the idea that some people are in lockdown at the moment, and quarantined, and, you know, restricted from a lot of things that would usually be their solace, with people who, or just in a place where they are unsafe, is a really scary thing.
Yeah, that really is. You're somewhere, you haven't taken a step back in your career. You've actually made some sideways, you know, things that you didn't think that you would do, but you're safe and you're secure, and you're putting your energy into things that are meaningful, not just for yourself, but also for the world. So that's a really nice thing, and an opportunity that you wouldn't have if you didn't have a home to come back to.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna read another poem. So this one about finding independence. The final chapter of the book is serotonin, and it's the moment where it was all of the poems where I definitely started to feel, oh my gosh, the beauty of solitude, the beauty of not finding things to depend on, and yeah, finding that just like inner happiness. Okay, I'm gonna read detaching. Last quarter moon, and I'm lounging in lilac. I'm giving up choosing and making my mind up. I'll bathe in perfume tainted with cigarette smoke and dance on my tomb and stop laughing at bad jokes. And you'll blink as my decadence rolls out from each pore, then again at my bruised knees as I roll on the floor. No impatience, agitation, I'm just here for today. And when the sun ends his scorching, I'll have melted away.
That's really lovely.
Do you follow moon cycles?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I do. We actually, in the past couple of months, we've always had new moon ceremonies.
Yes, same. It's the best. It's the best. And the thing is, part of me thinks there's one side of me which completely believes it and says, well, the moon can control the tide, so why can't it control, exactly. And then there's another part of me that's like, I don't even necessarily know if it's true, if it does have an effect on us. However, there is something really gorgeous about following the moon cycle and taking some time once a month to think, okay, new moon, fresh start, what do I want, what do I and it's interesting taking the time to also making those things about what I want. I've stopped making them, I want to get a job, or I want to get a boyfriend, or I want to get this, or I want to get so much money. Instead of me trying to focus, I want to feel grounded, or I want to feel, and all working on things that I can find in myself, and using the moon and its patterns to kind of structure that chase has really helped me.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful, because it's also, again, it's pulling something internal from you to something in the nature that happens regularly, and you kind of connect through that. And I think you also just become more aware of the energies like around you, how you have to be aligned with your intentions and attract the things that are out there that will fulfill your life.
Yeah. I mean, my friend and I, when we were staying in London over the summer, we'd go to the park and we would do barefoot yoga. And there is something so grounding about just like having that, body to ground connection, which we lack in modern life because we disassociate from it. In every way possible. And I mean, like, how often do we actually feel the rain? I'm saying that now because I'm going so lame now, so wanky and pretentious, but it's so true. Like, how often do we actually go outside and feel the thing that is around us, the thing that exists? Because what? Oh my! I'm gonna go too much. I'm not gonna say what.
It's so funny because I've just started this thing on my Instagram. I do Fractal Fridays, and it sounds really stupid, but there are certain shapes and patterns that occur in nature, the way that the trees are shaped, or certain. If you think about the cauliflower that has like those beautiful patterns on it.
Yeah.
Those patterns, when found in nature, actually make you feel more relaxed, happier, and reduce your stress. So every day now when I go for a walk to walk my dog, I look out for them and I see if I can take any photos, and I'll share them with my friends. And I'm like, oh, it's Friday where I'm appreciating something in nature. And it's just elevated my mood so much. And it sounds like a stupid thing, but it exists, and it, yeah.
Yeah, completely. That's I think that's so interesting, and I think it's something that so many people as well have been. I mean, I didn't know. What's it called? Fractal pattern.
Yeah, so they're called fractal dimensions. Let me pull a photo up just in case.
Oh my god, amazing!
But it's been researched, like, scientifically. If you were to study, or if you're working and you're facing outside a window where you can see nature, especially those patterns in nature, you're more productive, you're less stressed, you're like happier. If you were to study in a room where all you have is a photo of it, you will also be calmer, more efficient, but less so than if you had the window facing outside. And in the last condition, if you were just in a room where you weren't exposed to any of these, like the nature or the patterns, then you would be on the scales, like the most unproductive, the most stressed, the most like moody.
Yeah. Oh, that's
So it is a thing.
it's so interesting. I need to get some.
Here, I've got some, I don't know if this is gonna come out well, but I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, cool. Oh my
Like
gosh,
these
yeah.
are plants and they grow in a geometric way.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. It's so, and you know, it's funny because, you know, over the lockdown period, I think so many of us actually were connecting so much more to nature, not necessarily through like fractal patterns, but like just through like going out for a walk. I have a WhatsApp group called a gratitude group, and every day we post the things that we're grateful for. Uh,
Oh,
and it's over the past few months, so many of them. And when you have to sort of, and sometimes, you know, you're in a bad mood, like you don't feel like there's anything you're grateful for, but we force ourselves to sit and say, okay, what am I happy about? And it's rare that there's not something to do with nature in it.
yeah.
It's really rare.
Yeah. The first holiday I went on after lockdown, we just went to a lake, but I was sitting with my friend under the tree and we were like, oh, it's so green, the grass is so green in the tree. And we were just like, all the colors just really, like when you appreciate something, when you're actually looking at it, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that in London. In London, you kind of walk around and you're in nature and you're like, oh, the trees are kind of like, the green is kind of gray.
Mm.
But yeah.
Totally. No, okay, so as I said, I could talk for hours, but I think we should probably call it a day, because otherwise people will be falling asleep. But thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, so people who are watching, please, if you are interested in my poems, or if not, still go for it and buy a copy. So you can get it on Amazon, but also if you're more independently focused, you can just contact me, and I can send you a copy, buy directly from me. And yes, please make sure you follow my poetry account, which is at Dripping Honey Poetry on Facebook. Or if you want to follow, the reason why I got in contact with Anne-Sophie is because she posts some of the most like incredible stories and posts about so many of the issues that we're talking about today, and engaging with things that I don't think people speak about enough. So absolutely make sure you follow Coochie by Gucci on Instagram too, the best handle ever. And yeah, cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Bye.